Breaking news as we come on the air for the West Coast. A deadly shooting spree in central Texas. 5 are dead, the gunman 2.
They have an active shooter at Home Depot.
At least 21 are injured after the suspect opened fire at random motorists on the highway. Gaining strength, Hurricane Dorian now getting bigger, stronger, and heading toward even more states.
Don't make any assumptions. Remain vigilant and be prepared.
The Bahamas bracing for a direct hit within hours. 911 call backlash, a drowning woman's desperate plea for help, and the operator's shocking response.
I'm scared. I've never had anything like this happen to me before.
Well, this will teach you next time. Don't drive in the water.
What police are saying about it now. Price hikes. New tariffs on China go into place tonight. The price you pay about to go up on everything from diapers to tools to bikes and even your Labor Day barbecue. And challenge accepted. The Ice Bucket Challenge. Millions of Americans got in on the action. Now the amazing result of all that cold cash.
This is NBC Nightly News with Jose Diaz-Balart.
Good evening. I'm Peter Alexander in tonight for Jose, and we begin with a shooting spree near Odessa, Texas. 5 people are dead, 21 injured following a traffic stop. Police say the suspect shot a trooper, then sped off, firing at people on the highway. He has since been killed by officers. Ron Allen is joining us now. Ron, what more do we know?
What a terrifying and crazy afternoon. This is a very dense area. A lot of this happened near a shopping mall on a busy state highway. According to police, it started with a traffic stop. The state trooper pulled over a motorist for unknown reasons. The gunman opens fire on the officer, takes off, and then starts firing randomly at people on the highway. At some point, he ditches his car and hijacks a mail van, a postal van, and continues his rampage. Throughout the afternoon, there are reports of 2 gunmen, 3 gunmen, several cars involved. It all turns out to be just one suspect who's cornered near a movie theater. There's a gun battle, and the police essentially kill him right there. Here's what the authorities had to say about the casualties.
This subject was contacted by law enforcement, and an exchange of gunfire happened, and that subject is deceased at that location. We have law enforcement injured. We have the DPS trooper in Midland County. We have 1 MPD officer and 1 OPD officer that were struck. As far as civilian casualties, we have at least 21 victims, 21 shooting victims, and at least 5 deceased at this point in time.
So you heard there several police officers, a state trooper, other local officers from Odessa and Midland were injured in this hail of gunfire that went on for perhaps an hour or so. And remember, all this is happening some 300 miles from El Paso, where 3 weeks ago a gunman opened fire and killed at least 20 people in a Walmart. So an area on edge, another shooting rampage in America. Police don't know exactly what set this guy off, but the bottom line is that they caught him, they cornered him, and they shot him dead. Peter?
All right, a terrifying scene. We will continue to monitor it. Ron Allen, thank you very much. Now to our other big story tonight, Hurricane Dorian. It keeps strengthening. Now an extremely dangerous Category 4 storm, 500 miles across, packing 150-mile-an-hour winds. The latest forecast showing this powerful hurricane veering away from Florida, but the state is not out of the woods yet. And the new track could put Georgia and the Carolinas in the crosshairs. The immediate concern, the Bahamas, bracing for a direct hit. The prime minister warning, if you wait this evening to find safety, it's too late. We have our team positioned across the storm zone, but we begin with WNBC meteorologist Maria.
Well, indeed, it's too late because by this time tomorrow, it's the Bahamas' turn to feel the wrath of Dorian. Right now, a strong Category 4 storm, 150-mile-per-hour winds moving to the west at about 8 miles per hour. By tomorrow evening, early on Monday, moving over the Bahamas and staying there for 12 hours as a Category 4 storm, and where it then is expected to take that turn to the north and then the east, putting in its crosshairs the Georgia coast, the South Carolina, and the North Carolina coast as we get from Tuesday through Thursday. So we have the warnings up for the Bahamas. Newest, those tropical storm watches for parts of the east coast of Florida for those conditions deteriorating as we get into Monday. High probability of those strong winds, but Peter, also heavy torrential rainfall to the west of that path as we get into next week.
All right, Maria, thank you very much. And despite that new path farther to the east, officials in Florida are warning residents that Dorian is a very serious storm that could still hit a big part of that state. Gabe Gutierrez is in Martin County, Florida, for us tonight. Gabe, what are officials there saying?
Peter, good evening. Parts of Florida are now under tropical storm watch. Florida's governor is urging residents to remain vigilant. Here in Martin County, mandatory evacuations were set to begin tomorrow, but late today, authorities canceled them as the threat from Dorian rapidly changes. Tonight, a dramatic shift in the forecast. Hurricane Dorian now expected to just scrape Florida's Atlantic coast.
Looks like a monster to me.
Today, from gas to groceries, a run on supplies as the storm intensified. In Stuart, Florida, anxiety measured in sandbags. Just ask Jennifer Cross. How worried are you that it's still going to flood?
I'm still worried.
Despite the unpredictable forecast, many of the people waiting in this line say they are expecting a lot of rain. And since many of them live in low-lying areas, they're not taking any chances. The Florida Keys, Miami, and Fort Lauderdale are now out of the storm's expected path, but authorities warn most of the Sunshine State remains in the dreaded cone of uncertainty.
Don't make any assumptions. Remain vigilant and be prepared.
The White House says FEMA is briefing the president every hour. Florida Power and Light is pre-positioning 18,000 workers, bracing for extensive outages.
Even if Florida doesn't take a direct impact, we're expecting impacts like significant storm surge and potential flooding.
Cruises out of Port Canaveral canceled starting tomorrow. Many airlines are waiving change fees, as property owners like Dick Jones hope for the best.
Just in case it turns the other way, you got to be ready.
And Gabe, you've been on the ground there all day. Is it your sense that most people are taking this threat seriously?
Well, Peter, I have to say there's been a significant change here in the last 12 hours or so. Millions of people on Florida's East Coast went to bed last night expecting a catastrophic storm. And now, while there is some relief for South Florida, authorities are quick to point out that most of the state is not out of the woods yet, Peter.
While wind is a major concern, the rain, flooding, and storm surge could swamp that low-lying island chain. Morgan Chesky is in Nassau for us tonight. Morgan, what's the mood like? What's it like on the island right now?
Yeah, Peter, right now people are keeping an incredibly close eye on Dorian's path because any shift could make a drastic difference. As it stands right now, Abaco Island and Grand Bahama stands to get the brunt of Dorian's force as it makes its way through. And you mentioned that storm surge. We're talking about 12 to 15 feet in certain areas and those sustained winds of anywhere from 120 to 150 miles an hour. The Prime Minister issuing a dire warning earlier, telling anyone in low-lying areas to get out if they can. Meanwhile, I spoke to the commander of a local search and rescue operation, and he tells me they've pre-positioned certain supplies in order to have easy access to them should they need it when Dorian moves through. But he says no matter how many hurricanes you go through, it never gets any easier. Peter?
Morgan Chesky in the Bahamas tonight. Morgan, stay safe. Now to the president. One of his most trusted employees is out of a job after comments that she made about the First family got back to him. He defended her at first, but now making a stab on social media about the consequences of spilling more secrets. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell has this report.
After indiscreet talk about the Trump family by a once trusted Oval Office gatekeeper, Madeleine Westerhout.
She said she was drinking a little bit and she was with reporters.
Today, the president delivered a warning to keep quiet, wrapped in friendly tones. While Madeleine Westerhout has a fully enforceable confidentiality agreement, she is a very good person, and I don't think there would ever be reason to use it. Westerhout had been greeter, guardian of secrets, and executive assistant, a government employee earning $145,000 a year.
Westerhout's comments about the Trump family happened during the president's Bedminster, New Jersey vacation at an off-the-record dinner with 4 print reporters. Word about what she said spread to a couple of other journalists and got back to senior White House officials who say they decided to tell the president.
Mentioned a couple of things about my children.
Had a bad night. I fully understood and forgave her, he wrote. And Mr. Trump chose to defend daughter Tiffany publicly.
Tiffany is great. I love Tiffany.
Westerhout, who had often posted about her White House experiences, today no longer an insider, tweeted appreciation from a private account. Kelly O'Donnell, NBC News, the White House.
President Trump's trade war with China will hit home for many Americans in the days and weeks to come. That's because new tariffs go into effect overnight on the products you use every day, everything from food to school supplies. In tonight's The Price You Pay, Joe Lynn Kent on how much it could cost you.
At the Ride Brooklyn bike store, where most of the bikes and bike parts he sells are made in China, owner Peter Kocher says he's already feeling the effects of Trump's trade war with China.
It's absolutely coming out of the pockets of everyday consumers and small business owners like us.
This new round of tariffs is expected to hit U.S. consumers especially hard. According to one estimate, the cost for the average American household, $1,000 a year. It's a 15% import tariff on over $1 billion worth of goods from China. The list 122 pages long of everyday items like food, diapers, and sporting equipment.
Every time one of these things hits, we take a hit and then consumers take a hit. Every single day we're paying for the tariffs.
Americans for Free Trade, a coalition of 150 businesses, urging Trump to postpone the tariffs, saying they could represent one of the largest tax increases in American history.
No, they're on. They're on.
Trump saying on Friday that he's communicating with China.
We're going to win the fight.
But details are scarce, and businesses have been left with uncertainty.
Every day you're wondering where the storm is going to go, where the hurricane is going to hit. How do we plan?
Meantime, China said it will impose even more tariffs on over 5,000 U.S. imports like soybeans, oil, beef, and pork. And they're reducing their reliance on products that come from the United States, a long game that, at least in the short run, is going to cost American consumers.
And Joe Lynn Kent joins me now. Joe, when do we expect these tariffs to begin impacting consumers?
Well, pretty soon, because we're going into the biggest shopping season of the year. U.S. Customs will begin collecting tariffs tonight. Companies, that means basically they'll be passing down the cost in the coming days, weeks, and months.
Americans keeping an eye on their wallet. Joe, thank you very much. Coming up next right here, a shocking 911 call as a woman desperate for help gets scolded by the dispatcher. Tonight, a newly released 911 call is sparking outrage in Arkansas. Blaine Alexander has the details.
You're going to need a boat. When Debbie Stevens' car was being swept away by Arkansas floodwaters, she did the only thing she could. She called 911.
Oh, God, please help me. Lord, please help me. I don't want to die.
Operator Donna Renault can be heard trying to help.
Don't leave that to me, man.
I'm going to get somebody out there to you. Just hold on.
But about 10 minutes into the 24-minute call, Renault, who had recently submitted her resignation and was working her last shift, appeared to lose patience.
I'm scared. I've never had anything like this happen to me before.
Well, this will teach you next time. Don't drive in the water.
Couldn't see it, ma'am. I'm sorry, or I wouldn't.
I don't see how you didn't see it. You had to go right over it.
9 minutes later, telling Stevens,
Miss Debbie, you're going to have to shut up, okay? I need you to listen to me.
Renault did not respond to NBC's request for comment. Fort Smith police say the call, while concerning, was not criminal.
It's a tragic thing. I understand that. Are there things that we need to maybe look at in our response? Absolutely.
They need to get their boat out here quick. She's way back there. It took officers nearly an hour to reach her. Stevens was driving her newspaper delivery route, her SUV hidden in the dark behind a row of trees. See where that light's reflecting? Yeah. That's where she's at. By the time they pulled her out, the 47-year-old could not be revived. Her tragic final calls for help now under investigation by Fort Smith police, taking a hard look at their own response. Blaine Alexander, NBC News.
And when we come back, millions of Americans took that ice bucket challenge. How its cold cash made a difference. It's been 5 years since the Ice Bucket Challenge swept the nation, raising funds for ALS research. NBC's Ron Mott tonight on how that money is making a huge difference.
1, 2, 3. One by one, from LeBron James to Bill Gates to Oprah. 17 million Americans soaked up a good cause in the summer of 2014 and flooded social media. The Ice Bucket Challenge was more than a splash, raising $115 million. It was a life changer for people with ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease.
I got the diagnosis. My family got the disease.
For Clay Aarons, diagnosed a few months before that summer of wet, the challenge was literally moving.
What's been the impact of all that cold ice water falling on people's heads? How's that changed your life?
The backlog requests for equipment from the chapter allowed me to get a scooter that gave me freedom.
For people with ALS, that freedom is fleeting as the neuromuscular disorder increasingly robs the body of its motor functions.
The Ice Bucket Challenge helped fund that scooter for us, and that has made a big difference in our lives.
The scooter Clay got from his local ALS chapter meant his service dog, Finnegan, could eventually retire and become a regular and beloved family member. The Ice Bucket Challenge helped the chapter in the Twin Cities, where Clay is a board member, clear its waiting list for much-needed specialty equipment, and it's still at zero.
The number one thing this challenge did for the ALS community is bring hope. We went out and bought all of the pieces of equipment that people were waiting for and delivered it to their door.
Other chapters did the same. A genome center was funded in New York. Kids programs were expanded in Colorado. But a cure, of course, remains elusive.
The Ice Bucket Challenge really did help us advance our research. It more than tripled our own research budget here at the association, and it allowed us to involve new scientists from around the world in ALS.
While they await a breakthrough, Clay and his family savor time.
I've always tried to live our life. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed.
From his own Ice Bucket Challenge to Bucket List, living for today. Ron Mott, NBC News, St. Paul, Minnesota.
That is NBC Nightly News for this Saturday. I'm Peter Alexander reporting from New York. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.